Evening all, and welcome back again for another video. And tonight we're in the Radio Shack, and I've got something interesting to show you which I actually purchased. Well, I didn't actually purchase it, I got given it actually about, let me see, probably about a year and a half ago. This big AM transmitter, a Marconi T1509. Now as you can see, this is a real monster, dates back to just after the war, I would guess, and from what I can tell, from the information I've got about it, and there isn't an awful lot of info out there, it was basically an RAF transmitter. Why the RAF needed such a powerful transmitter, I'm not quite sure. Maybe they were trying to communicate with Mars or something like that, who knows. But it is quite interesting from an amateur radio point of view, and what I'm going to do is quickly show it to you, and we'll see if we can fire it up and hopefully get it to work. Right, so here it is. So as you can see, it's a bit of a lump of a thing. According to the blurb that came with it, it actually weighs 800 pounds, which if you convert that to kilos is about 400 kilos. It's probably a bit less than that actually. The guy I got it from, the deal was that if I could take it away from him, I could have it. So with the help of about 3 other chaps, we managed to load it up into the back of the pickup truck and take it away. So as you can see, it's actually got 2 sections. You've got the transmitter section, which is this, and at the bottom here is the power supply. And each of these units pulls out like so. Once it's in this cabinet, it's really difficult to do anything with. And the problem is that in order to work on this, you've really got to take the whole thing out, and you literally need about 3 or 4 people to help you lift this thing out. There's so much heavy iron in this transmitter, you know, transformers, power transformers, modulation transformers, etc. That, you know, in order to see it or to work on it, it's a bit of a job. So it's billed as a 200 watt AM transmitter. It'll do CW. It does have, there is a VFO in it, but it's not terribly reliable. So at the moment we've got a crystal in here on one of the AM amateur radio frequencies. So you've got a driver here in this sort of section. There's a multiplier. It will cover, oh, that's a good question, up to about 18 megahertz. From about 3 to 18, but I might be mistaken, it might go lower. At the moment I only use it on the 80 meter band. You've got a modulator as well built in there for AM, and the bottom section, which I'll show you in a minute, is actually the power supply. So what I'll do is I'll pull these drawers out and then we can have a quick look inside. Right, as you can see, I've pulled the bottom section out, and this is houses the power supply. So if we have a quick look, this is about as far as I can pull it out really, but there's some seriously big components here. So you've got some big smoothing capacitors sort of all along there. So there are some modifications that have been done to this power supply, which weren't done by me but by the previous owner, and I haven't attempted to try and replace those because the thing works, and you know, if it works, you don't really want to fiddle with it in case it, you know, you actually make more of a job for yourself. I don't know if you can see at the back there, but it's got 4 CV187 valves, which are the rectifying tubes, and right underneath, bit difficult to see from this angle. We'll see if we can see it from here. And underneath, let's move out of the way, there's some massive, great big transformers and chokes for the high voltage. This transmitter is basically 2813s in the PA, and 2813s to modulate those power amplifier tubes. So you're talking of you know, a lot of volts. I think the plate voltage on this transmitter is somewhere in the order of about 1200 or 1250 volts. And the modulators, HT for the modulator is also similar sort of value. So it really is quite an industrial transmitter. Anyway, so what we'll do is I'll put the power supply back, and then we'll pull out the transmitter section. So here we go. I've pulled the transmitter section out, and well, as you can see, there's some pretty industrial looking valves here. So that's actually the modulator tube. So those are two 813s, or as they say in the States, 813s. And that's the modulator transformer there. I'm not sure if that's the power transformer. No, that's the power transformer for the modulator. And I believe the modulation transformer is maybe on the other side or underneath it. But anyway, it gives you a good idea of how you know, chunky this thing actually is. And then right at the top here, this is the power amplifier, so the tank circuit, and as you can see, you've got some seriously big coils and capacitors there. You've got a variable inductor here. I mean, that is a lovely big heavy duty roller coaster inductor. Big high voltage tuning capacitors there, and there's another one over there for the plate and the load tuning. It's a bit difficult to see, but the two 813s are just behind this capacitor just down there for the PA. It's a bit difficult to pull this thing out completely because it's plugged in at the back. And the other thing as well is that when you pull each unit out, what does tend to happen is it becomes a bit unsteady. It's not likely to topple over with the power supply out, but I don't really want to risk it. If you have a closer look at the front panel, you've got these lovely brass dials here. Some of the metering here, that's the output of the transmitter. You've got the plate current there. Nice old-fashioned meters. Again, lovely brass dials. I think for the driver system they use I think that's probably aluminium or something. But they certainly built their transmitters in the old days on quite an industrial scale. That down there is actually the audio amplifier for the microphone. And there's just another view of the high voltage transformers. I mean, they really are quite massive. Anyway, what I'll do, I'll put it all back together, and we'll see if we can fire it up. See what happens. Right, okay, so it's all fired up, and so far it all seems to be working. No major glitches. We've got all our power lights on, and the little box on the top there is actually a little power supply for the relays, a relay changeover box. So what we've got this thing wired up to a dummy load. That's our power meter, and what we want to do is be looking at the one on the right hand side. That indicates our forward power, and this is going into a dummy load on the floor. So if I key it, the other thing which you might notice on the video as well is that the actual lights flicker when I key this thing. So I'll just keep an eye on the plate current, those 2 meters. I'm not sure if you'd pick that up or not, but the lights actually slightly dim and flicker. It just shows how much power this thing's producing, which isn't an awful lot of RF given the size of it. But that's the power meter, so let's just key it again and you can see what happens. So that's 200 watts carrier. So when we use it with the microphone there, that's a D104 microphone on AM, it's obviously a little bit more than that. It's about 4 times the peak envelope power, so it's actually quite a lot more than 200 watts, so that's 200 watts carrier. Obviously, if you're on the amateur bands, that's actually double the licensed power, so we can actually fiddle with this and reduce the power, but I'm just showing you what it's capable of into a dummy load. So we're not transmitting, we're not breaking any laws, as they say. So that's quite interesting. So what I want to show you before we turn that transmitter off is this transmitter here on the desk, which is actually a homemade Class E solid state transmitter. Now if you exclude the audio processors on the top, this transmitter here, which is all solid state and again homebrew, is capable of double the power of that T1509, and look how big it is compared to it. It's a fraction of the size. So that just gives you an idea of modern electronics compared to, you know, some of these vintage radios that we have in the shack. That's an ART-13 US Air Force transmitter, and compared to this massive, great big T1509 AM transmitter. Anyway, that wraps it up for the video. I hope you enjoyed that, and for those who are waiting for more jet engine videos, there will be more in the pipeline very soon, so don't get disheartened at all the electronic stuff if you're not interested in that. It's coming. Anyway, good evening and thanks for watching the video.